My name is Joe Hobin, and tonight's episode we are talking about a heavy topic once again, this week being gun violence and mass shootings. And before we begin, we want to say to the viewer that viewer discretion is advised, because there may be some ideas that you may not agree with, but we hope you stay tuned and lend us your ear. Thank you. And good evening. My name is Joseph Hobin, and today on Focal Point, we are going to address a major growing concern we have in our country, which is gun violence. But most importantly, mass shootings and gun control. But before we begin, as always, we need to isolate what a mass shooting really is, because there is not a hardcore definition when we talk about a term of this nature. I will also be, for transparency's sake, be using GVA and Mass Shooting Tracker when talking about mass shootings, because I feel that the additional information that both have are credible, although there are logistical settings in reporting that can be skewed. For an example, the Rochester shooting that happened on October 10th is listed on Mass Shooting Tracker rather than gun violence, because I believe that this was a homicide killing at two separate locations, but were connected to the same gunman. This discrepancy is why GVA and Mass Shooting Tracker have a difference of 69 different shootings incidents. At this current point in time, November 1st, we have a confirmed GVA 307 to 431 people who have died from mass shootings, and 1,207 to 1,365 people who have been wounded in mass shootings. Now, I just threw a lot of numbers at you, and I know that's hard to process, so I'm going to try to break it down for you. On September 11th, just about 3,000 people died, so we're just under 70 more people in one of the worst casualties on American soil. And on the low end of the spectrum, being about half the amount of people who have died in the war on Iraq. However, the numbers don't stop here, because if you're only talking about gun violence with mass shootings and not just gun violence as a whole, there have been a confirmed 12,253 deaths from guns, and there has been over 500 children who have been injured or killed by guns for this year. Now, guns are the Second Amendment right in our country, reading a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And guns have protected a lot of people in our country. According to NPR, research back in 1995 said that on average about 2.5 million people protect themselves every year with guns. And that since then, that number has been seen as an overestimate, but the number is still around 100,000 people providing self-defense with guns. Now, when you look at that compared to the number like 40,000 incidents a year, the numbers are dwarfed. The question that needs to be asked is, how does one protect themselves from gun control? When you are in a school, a church, a public area, or a concert, there has to be more to talk on these regulations, and they're protecting the people who cannot protect themselves. The 3,000 combined kids and teens who were wounded or killed this last year can't protect themselves. So how will we protect ourselves? When we get back, folks, I will not be in the chair asking these questions, as I will be giving it to my new co-host, Vienna Ainsworth, on our last episode. From me to you, stay safe, and we will be right back. Thank you.
The original promo was to have Quake and Warp side by side in a competition.
I'm sad because the idea was really good.
Good evening and welcome to Inside the News. I'm Alex Gladsteiner.
And I'm Morgan Ruger.
It was like putting in a full-time job just for my editing alone.
I run a show Focal Point here, and it takes up most of my time.
Nothing can make you ready for the workload PSTV brings.
If you want something, you have to go get it. It's not gonna come to you.
It's October 11th, 10:50 at night.
11:15 p.m.
11:30 p.m.
11:45 p.m.
If you're happy with your work, at the end of the day, it's all worth it.
Me te tengo que decir, te digo que me tienes harta, el peso que ese es su cuerito, me llaman a las 4 de la mañana, me toman un mensaje, mira, oye, pero cada rato, oye, te tengo que decir, este muchacho me mete a mi harta. Ni siquiera tengo su number save, me llama cada rato, me está mandando mensajes que yo te hacía.
Ay, pero qué dramática. Estás viendo PSTV, Canal Charter 194, Canal Campus 10.1.
Tune into PSTV, Campus Channel 10.1 and Charter Cable 194.
Hello, I'm Vienna Ainsworth, your host for this evening, and tonight joining me are our guests Will Houle and Nicholas Arsenikos. And tonight we're going to be talking about gun control. So, first question, do you think there should be more restrictions for gun control?
I definitely think there should be more restrictions on guns. We've tried doing nothing, and it clearly hasn't worked. So I think it's time that we start talking about realistic gun control measures like universal background checks, reinstating the assault weapons ban, and more funding for mental health programs. I think those are a couple of steps that the majority of Americans can agree on, especially with universal background checks. So I think that's a good start.
I have to agree with Will on regards to the universal background checks. That is, giving someone who has a mental disability is just a problem. Giving them a gun is just a problem. It doesn't make sense. Like, it just causes more problems than it's actually worth. And of course, there should be more regulations on less useful weapons for just a normal day-to-day life. Like, if you live in the North Country, you might have a hunting rifle or a hunting shotgun. You need that for regular hunting. But if you're living in a city, you really don't have need for that on property, especially. There should be more of a regulation to have more in a safe location, such as a gun range, or maybe someplace that's governmentally issued to have and hold certain weapons. But a handgun in like a town or a simple apartment, sure, that's a protection weapon. That is a protection weapon. That's meant to protect your family. And I can completely understand that. But you don't need a AR or some other big weapon to protect your family. A simple handgun will suffice for most situations.
I have to agree with that. You don't need an AR-15 to protect your home. If you can't protect your home with a handgun, a shotgun, even a hunting rifle, then you haven't demonstrated the proper proficiency in using that firearm to be responsible enough to own it.
I agree with you both completely, and I think there should be more training when getting a gun, because you get these people that think, oh, it'll be fun to get a hunting rifle and go out hunting, and they don't know how to properly use it, and that leads to incidents. I think another good plan to implement would be a background check for not only the one wanting the gun, but those residing in their homes.
That is a fair point. That is a very fair point, actually. I agree with that.
Because people say, yes, we're going to keep it in a safe, we're going to keep it locked and unloaded, but that's not always the case. That doesn't always happen, and you hear about these kids who bring these guns to school, and you think, how did they get a hold of the gun? So I think we should make sure that everyone in the house can handle a gun responsibly before we bring a gun into that house.
I agree.
So our next question, what do you think we can do to prevent gun violence?
Well, I have to say those simple measures, just universal background checks, reinstating the assault weapons ban, those are two very big steps that would lead towards less gun violence in general. I also think that more funding for mental health services. One of the top leading causes of gun-related deaths, injuries, is suicide. So I think we need to really put in a focus onto that.
Again, with the universal background checks, that will help in preventing gun violence. Just, I guess, training, really. I mean, gun safety training, if you want to buy a gun, you have to go through maybe a week-long certification so you actually know what to do. Just random stuff like that. Like the minute things. It's not going to be an all-end law that's going to stop it, but it's going to be a process of similar, smaller laws that teach people how to properly use it, teach people where to properly use, and teach people just proper maintenance and proper procedures and keeping it safe from family members. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be the minute issues, not the large ones.
And I do have to agree with that. I think that one argument that we see a lot in favor of gun control is people say, oh, well, motor vehicles, they kill more people than guns. Do you want to have truck control? Do you want to have car control? And the answer is we already have that. You have to pass a road test to get your license. You need to insure your car. You need to register it. We don't really have that with guns. So I think some of those measures that can be implemented, that would help a lot.
I agree with both of you. And another point certain people raise, whether or not we agree with this is besides the point, is that people think putting more guns into the picture will solve the problem, that, oh, if people are armed, then it won't happen. And a big one is talking about teachers being armed to prevent school shooters. So what is your opinion on teachers having guns in the classroom?
I do not favor that whatsoever. Teachers are underpaid and overworked, and the last thing that they need to be thinking about is, how to operate a gun and how to also teach their students at the same time. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's realistic that we're going to be able to federally fund a gun for every teacher when we can't even federally fund school supplies, and they're spending out-of-pocket money to get those supplies. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it would work.
That is a fair point you bring up. That was kind of going to my point as well with the funding and stuff. One idea that I did have was more non-lethal kind of takedown weapons such as a pepper spray or even a stun gun. That I'm perfectly fine with. But giving a handgun or even a shotgun in some cases, in some areas, no, it's not right. There's no need for it. But a stun gun, usually whenever a school shooting happens, it's usually one person. So if you can manage to take out that one person, even at range with some form of taser or stun gun, that could work. But it all comes down to, like you said before, with funding. Most likely, we should really spend that funding on more books, on more school supplies, instead of just a stun gun or something like that. Of course, we may protect our children, but sometimes school supplies are a little bit more valuable than buying a stun gun when we have security guards usually on campus or on school grounds to actually do the job itself. It shouldn't be the teacher's responsibility. It should be more the schools itself, the security guards.
I agree with both of you. And another good point no one ever seems to bring up when discussing this is that you're then putting a gun in a room with a ton of children when everything everyone is trying to do is get the guns away from the kids. So I feel like that could be asking for more problems because that's giving another kid that might want to do something with their school access to a gun.
For sure.
And something that's an attempt to prevent gun violence could cause more of it. So, do you think there has been an increase in gun violence recently, or do you think media is just covering it more?
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah.
I think over the past 20 years, statistically, there has been more gun violence. And I think now that we have social media, we're seeing more of it. And I think that's led to more activism in support of gun control. So I think the media coverage has been a positive thing, but it also, because it's shown this light onto just how big of a problem this is.
It also leads to copycat crimes because if someone sees like, oh, this person got famous for doing this horrific act, maybe if I do it as well, I'll become famous as well. It creates copycat kind of criminal acts. And that's the problem with media. That's the problem with mass media. When we're all so connected together, that's what's going to happen. It's inevitable with that. And it's unfortunate. And of course, the media also blows certain things out of proportion. It's just a common thing. Some mass shootings aren't even really mass shootings if you look at the proper definitions. Mass shootings, if I'm correct, are shooting with 3 people at most, and that could, or 3 to 4 people. And that could change, like a mass shooting at, let's say, a plaza. That is definitely 100% a mass shooting, but a mass shooting where it's like a small domestic abuse kind of, not domestic abuse, but like a problem at home, that's still considered a mass shooting as well. And they might blow that out of proportion, but it gets fishy with that. And yeah, the media is a little bit to blame for more mass shootings, I feel. And sometimes a little bit more gun regulation laws, but I see mainly the media a little bit more.
I think the fact that we have to split hairs like that about what is a mass shooting, it really kind of says something about where we are at this point in the country and why we need this change. We need to do something.
Awareness can definitely swing both ways. On the one hand, it does tell people that, yes, this is a problem. Yes, we do need to do something about this. But it can also cause copycats. So it all comes down to if we are making the changes that need to be changed, then in the end it is much better. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we will be back to cover more of this topic.
The original promo was to have Quake and Warp side by side in a competition.
I'm sad because the idea was really good.
Good evening and welcome to Inside the News. I'm Alex Gladstatter.
And I'm Morgan Ruger.
It was like putting in a full-time job just for my editing alone.
I run a show Focal Point here, and it takes up most of my time.
Nothing can make you ready for the workload PSTV brings.
If you want something, you have to go get it. It's not going to come to you.
It's October 11th, 10:50 at night.
11:15 p.m.
11:30 p.m.
11:45 p.m.
If you're happy with your work, at the end of the day, it's all worth it.
tengo que decir, que a mí me tienes harta. El peso de ese es su cuerito. Me llaman a las 4 de la mañana, me toman mensaje, mira. Oye, pero cada rato. Oye, te tengo que decir, este muchacho me mete a mi harta. Ni siquiera tengo su number save. Me llama cada rato, me está mandando mensajes que yo te hacía.
Pero qué dramática.
¿Dramática cómo? Dramática no tu madrina, chico. Te estoy diciendo que no es problema mía. Cada rato te metes en tu problema.
Estás viendo PSTV, Canal Charter 194, Canal Campus 10.1.
Tune into PSTV, Campus Channel 10.1 and Charter Cable 194.
Hello and welcome back to Focal Point. I'm Vienna and I'm here with our guests Will and Nicholas, and we're going to continue our conversations on gun violence and gun control. So, what do you think could be the cause for the rise in gun violence?
I believe, like what we said before the commercial break, with the whole copycat criminal mindset, that definitely is applicable to it. Same thing with the idea of allowing lesser gun control for more people that have more mental disabilities and more aren't exactly on the right mindset. That can definitely lead to it, but it's a complicated issue, I feel. What do you feel, Will?
I'd have to agree. I wouldn't say there's any one specific cause for the rise in this violence, but we have seen a rise since the 1990s in gun violence. So I'd have to say that's probably just how readily available these weapons are. There's the gun show loophole that you don't even need to go through a background check to obtain a gun.
Which is messed up. It is.
Yeah. So I think that may have something to do with just how easy it is to get these guns. I really just think that taking these steps to reduce gun violence would be assault weapons ban, closing the gun show loophole. Just there's a lot of things that we can do on a congressional level that sort of we can't do too much about.
I agree. Another possible subject is that media is kind of desensitizing us towards gun violence and making it seem like a more probable and less permanent cause of death. So people think, oh, well, you know, in the video game I shot my best friend and he respawned. Do you think that could be a possible cause?
Yes and no. I feel with that, it all depends on if the person can perceive fantasy from reality. Most people can. Like, for an avid video gamer myself, I know whenever I'm playing something like a Call of Duty game, I know I'm not actually hurting my friends. I can tell, like, oh, this is a video game, not actual real life. It's, for some people they can't, and that goes to the whole mental problems, but I don't feel that it is a problem for desensitizing people. I really don't. I feel it's just, instead of video games, it's more media itself. We've been exposed to more things. I remember years ago when ISIS was a big thing, with the whole beheading. That desensitizes people. That was messed up when that happened. What do you feel?
I think it's just a sign of the times. I think it's just a sign of the times that we're seeing this so much. It's just, it's becoming less and less of an event. These mass shootings, they happen so regularly that, you know, it's tragic, and the media's done covering it after a week.
It's another Tuesday. It's another Tuesday. That's literally what it is.
It's very unfortunate. I think it's just a sign of the times.
Do you think there should be mandatory training for anyone who wants to buy a gun?
I believe we touched up on this earlier, and yes, there really should be. Training is just 100% thing that should be done. You wouldn't expect to give a driver's license to someone who doesn't know how to drive a car. It's the same thing with a gun. It could cause more harm than it's actually worth.
Exactly,
Yeah, if you can't demonstrate that you are able to use that weapon, then you shouldn't be allowed to have it. I mean, if we make people take a road test to, you know, say, hey, you can use the car as a form of transportation, we should make you say, all right, here, take this test and show me that you're actually able to operate this and use it in a safe way.
I agree. So we touched on gun violence within schools when we were talking about whether we think teachers should have guns. How do you feel about the school shooter drills being held in schools?
I suppose they're fine, I guess, but I remember when I was in high school, for my own personal events with the school shooter drills, we just hid in a corner and locked the door. I think anyone with a handgun can easily shoot out a lock and enter the room. That's not proper drilling, in my opinion. So what they should have done was they should have done maybe barricading or teach us how to do that. If they really wanted to do the school shooting drills, actually teach us how to actually defend ourselves with that. That's fine, I feel. But just cowering in a corner, just trying to lock ourselves in the door, that's not going to stop anything. It's just going to make it worse for us. We can't escape then. We can't leave. We're trapped. We're literally mice in a cage.
I mean, it's a sign of the times that we even have to be doing these drills in schools, and that schools are treated as a place where there could possibly be danger. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to, do this, but it's a necessary. I guess it's a necessary part of going to school now.
Do you think it has an effect on the children going when they have to, even at such a young age? I remember in elementary school we had lockdown drills. So do you think it affects the young kids having to learn that there are people in the world that could want to break into their school and shoot them?
Maybe as a little kid.
But I feel by the time middle school or high school's kind of kicked in, it's a sign of the times. It's like you say, it's another Tuesday, really. It's just another day of life. That's what it is. It's depressing to say, and it's horrible to say, and it shouldn't have to be said, but that's this world that we live in. That's America. That is this world. It's messed up. It really is.
It's a necessary evil, so to speak, until we can figure out how to have better control over all of it.
Yeah, and going back to the issue of arming teachers, I think that's just it. If you're complaining about lockdown drills and then at the same time saying we should arm teachers, they just don't correlate in my mind. I can't see.
Exactly. And there's so many times when armed guards or armed police officers are still shot and killed, so I don't really see how adding more guns to the situation could fix it, especially if you put them in the hands of people that aren't properly trained to handle them.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us on our final episode of Focal Point.
Hello everyone, my name is Joe Hobin. For the last 8 weeks, every other week, we've been talking about some serious heavy issues, and this was our final episode. And I want to leave you with this. This show is not over right here, and I want you to stay tuned because although this is our last season, we're going to do some special stuff probably at the end of the year about certain topics that there's not a lot of detail in it right now for the actual stats, but they are hard conversations, and you don't want to miss that. And I just want to say thank you to my whole crew for always helping me out and putting in all the hard work in. This has been Focal Point. My name is Joe Hobin. And as always, stay safe, North Country. I will see you very soon. Thank you.